Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, welcome back to the channel, and with the Smite 2 alpha concluding this weekend, I thought I would go over some of the community's thoughts on the game. So I made a post on my YouTube, there's also been a post made on Reddit by someone else that I'll be going over in this video as well, but I just thought, you know, some kind of video to collate the community's thoughts. One, it'll be useful to high-res in terms of providing feedback and improving the game, and also I'm just interested in what the community thinks about the game and where their opinions differ from mine, all that good stuff. So yeah, basically I'm going to be reading your guys' comments on what you think of Smite 2, some of the pros, some of the cons, any issues you have with it, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let's just jump right in. So first up, Uncle Fred says he hasn't had the chance to play it though. Yeah, unfortunately, if you signed up for a code, it sounds like not many people got in if you just signed up for a code. Obviously, if you bought the Founders Pack, you should have got in, and if you didn't, then I definitely need to submit a complaint to Hi-Res about that. You're supposed to get guaranteed access, but if you just signed up through the website, it just seems like not a lot of people got in that way, which is kind of unfortunate, but hopefully for future alpha tests, they'll be able to roll out larger ways of access without needing to buy a Founders Pack. Because of course, the game is going to go free to play at some point. I personally, the Founders Pack is hella worth it for me because, yeah, I get the double legacy gems and, you know, there's essentially so much value there for me. But, you know, Smite 2 is going to be a free game, so it's understandable if people don't want to buy Founders Packs for it and stuff, and they just want to wait until they get access to the alpha or whatever, or like until closed beta where it's going to be available for free. But yeah, hopefully more people do get access to it as we get like further through these alpha tests, which they've said they're going to be doing alpha tests about once a month at the moment. So Aqua, YouTube member for quite a long time, appreciate it, buddy. It was pretty cool for a first build. Not a fan of potions taking up the standard item slots. Yeah, me neither, really. I think some kind of like consumable slot would make sense. It won't be that hard to implement, but I guess the reason they're doing it like this is probably because of the amount of like button binds that you'll need. You know, you've got your beads and your ward. You'd also have 2 potion ones. Then you'd have your active items on top of that. It might be like a little too many key bindings, especially if you're controller players. I prefer to pick from a selection of relics rather than auto beads, but not all of the old ones. Having some as active items as a way to have risk reward and power utility sacrifice can be cool. Yeah, this is something I've said as well, and I've heard some other people talk about. Like, I think that would make a lot of sense. Auto beads is it just kind of makes the game very unfun for the earlier mid-game where like everything you hit pretty much just gets beads a lot of the time because you're not like team fighting constantly and burning people's beads. You're just like boxing in lane and they just have beads every time you go in on them pretty much. It's especially annoying with tanks because they're already hard to lock down, and the fact that they get free beads now with like no trade-off is kind of annoying. I think a smaller relic pool, almost similar to the way League Summoner spells work, would make sense. You know, you put like Blink in there so you don't necessarily have to have Blink tied to an item because I feel like that's also causing problems. So you could have like Blink there, Beads there, Aegis there, maybe like Horrific or Sprint or maybe both. Probably Horrific would be the better one, I think, as like a support relic, and then TP in my opinion. I think something like 5 relics like that would make sense. Minimum 4. I feel like Blink, Beads, Aegis, and TP should definitely be there as like an option. And then maybe you could throw in a supportive relic as well, because obviously supports aren't going to really want any of those other than maybe Blink, and there'd be like a trade-off in support. You know, do you want to go Blink on something like your Mia, or maybe you don't need Blink to engage, you like an Athena or whatever, and you could maybe go for Curse. So yeah, I think like 4 or 5 relics available there instead of just being automatically beads would definitely make the game a lot more fun. There are too many stealth bushes everywhere. We can have some of them, but significantly fewer, please. Yeah, there are a lot of stealth bushes. That's clearly a thing they're like pushing for a lot. You know, on the entrances to every lane, there is a stealth bush, and there's also quite a few in the jungle as well. Personally, I've been liking them a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. It allows for some bit more crazy gank potential. People can't necessarily like look into the jungle and see that you're coming because they do block vision, and so you can actually like allow people to gank a little bit easier. This is something that could definitely be changed as we go forward with the alpha map and stuff like that. This is just the first iteration, so if it turns out that like the stealth bushes are just like really annoying to deal with, they can definitely tone them down. Looking forward to getting more lifesteal items in stock. Anubis can't do Anubis things with just one tier 3 lifesteal int item. Yeah, it is really good on Anubis. Bloodbound book is definitely something you want to go, but there is a major lack of lifesteal items at the moment. There's that one where you get additional lifesteal when you hit them below health, below like 50% health, I think, and then there's Bloodforge, and then there's Bloodbound book, and that's kind of it. So yeah, some more lifesteal in the pool would be great. At least for the time being, I felt like Death Ball strats worked a little too well, especially synergizing with the invade mechanics and teleporters. Someone pointed out that we're just going to need to adjust and learn to play some more to alleviate that. I think there needs to be some carefully balanced anti-snowball stuff. So a lot to unpack here. I didn't really notice anything particularly like Death Ball-y about the strats that people doing. I think if anything, it's people not really knowing how to play the map effectively, so they just group up as 5 people and run it down. Because a lot of people that were joining the alpha didn't really seem to know what they were doing, and also the matchmaking was completely off, of course, because everyone was reset to the exact same MMR, so you had people with 5,000 hours of Smite experience, and then you had them in the same game, and people had just tried out the Smite 2 alpha and have never played a MOBA in their life. So I feel like a lot of these strats that people were doing, that's not really going to be a relevant point. People haven't figured out how to play yet. But yeah, in terms of anti-snowball stuff, the game did feel quite snowbally, especially on the gold front, and I think a lot of that is on the back of the tower bounties and gold piles. Gold piles are probably fine, in my opinion, though maybe they could be toned down a little bit. They give, like, about as much as totem, but there's, like, 4 of them across the map, so they can add up really quickly if you're, like, controlling those and not letting the enemy get them. They definitely add up really quick, because the respawn time on them is quite short. And then tower bounties are just ridiculous. Tower bounties absolutely need to be nerfed down in the amount of gold they give. I think at the moment you get 7 or 800 gold for destroying a tower completely, which is just insane. So yeah, definitely adjust some of that stuff down. The XP snowball didn't feel bad at all, but the gold snowball particularly, yeah, I could easily find myself 2.5 to 3k ahead of everyone else in the game just because I've like pushed both my towers down and got all the gold piles effectively. I loved it. The potential of Ymir one hit with a basic and Neath with full magical power can literally delete you is insane and fun, though I hope something like Fenrir's Brutalized full CC immunity will be, I'm pretty sure Brutalized does not have full CC immunity. Maybe I'm wrong on that, because it's a little too OP, but the redesign that all of the gods got, even some smaller ones, was good. Looking forward for my faves and the needed ones. Also, the graphical upgrade to UE5 is insane. I didn't mind the items, it can be learned, and the conquest map is changing, so I loved all of its aspects. Yeah, the god change is definitely one of my favorite things going into Smite 2. I hope that every single god that they bring over from Smite 1 has similar kind of changes. Put 14 hours into it over the weekend. Now it's a great upgrade to Smite 1 on every front. I haven't been able to open Smite 1 since the alpha ended. I loved it. Yeah, I was definitely having a ton of fun with it. I feel the same way. Like, going back to Smite 1, obviously Smite 1 is better made at the moment, but like there's a lot of new cool stuff in Smite 2. I was really sad when I had to hop back off of that and back onto Smite 1. It met my expectations. My biggest concern was the netcode. Sure, there were lag spikes sometimes, but I was afraid Titan Forge didn't have the resources to host the alpha, but they did, and overall it went well. I know there were some DirectX 12 crashes, but those can be fixed later. Visuals, characters, item shots, build variety, and reworks are all fantastic. They need to keep reworking characters that way. Yeah, we just talked about this before. I think that all of the changes made to gods were pretty much all positive. Store UI needs work. Yeah, I do agree with this. The store was a little bit of a pain to navigate, even on PC, so I imagine on console it was probably a lot worse. Beads on everyone sucks. Yeah, 100%. I don't think we should entirely bring back the old relic system. I do think the idea of active items is cool and it allows you to expand what's available, but I think some choice in the relics and not just giving everyone free beads, as I've mentioned before, would be good. Starters need to come back, but their upgraded variant should not be so potent like in Smite 1, where if you're not getting it, you're gimping yourself. Make it so the upgraded item fills a niche. If it works well with the build, keep it and upgrade it. If not, sell it late game for something better. Yeah, you could do it this way. Personally, I don't mind too much how starters come back, but I do want them back in some form. You know, you could do something like this where like they can be upgraded, but they're just about as powerful as a regular tier 3 item and maybe have some niche effects, so you might want them. You could do it like Smite 1. That's personally how I want it back. You could do it like Smite 1 where they're like more powerful than your regular items. It's really big power spike at level 20 and sort of a little bit of a build around in your build. Or you could just bring back standard like 800 gold or whatever. You buy it for the early game, you sell it late game. I'll be fine with that as well. I just think some starter items would definitely make the flow of the game feel better. Characters need to start with a base amount of int. I noticed strength builds dominating and doing more burst damage than int, and that's because everyone starts with base strength but 0 int, so they burst harder early game. I'm pretty sure people don't start with base strength. Maybe he's looking at basic attack damage. The way the stats are displayed on the right hand side of your screen is very confusing. You have basic attack damage and then int underneath it, and basic attack damage is like a fist and it looks like your strength, but it's not. It's your basic attack damage. So I'm pretty sure this guy's wrong on this. You don't start with strength, you start with none. I like the low stats on most items. Death to stat sticks. Yeah, I imagine as we go on in the years of Smite 2, it'll probably end up in a similar situation to Smite 1, because just generally to bring out new exciting items and to buff items that are underperforming, they just put more stats on them. But yeah, it's nice to see that like not every item has every stat in the game now. There's actually like trade-offs in your build. I truly loved everything except the things I will mention. I really hope they don't get too blinded by what UE5 could do out of the box with graphics and make it look polished by the end of development. Too many games have picked up Unreal 5, used all of the cool tech to make a nice looking game, but they end up all looking the same. Strong lighting, but sharp and hard to look at. I know what this guy means with this. Like, a lot of UE5 games do end up looking the same. They all look good, but they lose a little bit of like the personality and flair that, like, for example, Smite 1's original graphics have. Like, sure, objectively the graphics in Smite 2 are better, but it does lose a little bit of that style. So hopefully at the moment they're just like using a lot of the out of the box Unreal 5 tools at the moment, but then as we go forward they're gonna stylize it a little bit more and like bake the lighting properly to make it look a little bit more sort of unique, I suppose. The int strength system is amazing, but I really hope they will only give a mix of int strength potential to gods that will actually be able to use them both. Anubis' 2 scaling with strength is a meme and it brings no value to the character. If strength Anubis ends up being viable, at least in low ranks or fun, I will swallow my words, but I don't want the game to be pulled by dozens of polluted by dozens of abilities that scale with the opposite stat for the god just for the lulz. Yeah, again, this is, I like this guy's comment. He's actually thinking about it. This is just kind of silly that like Anubis 2 scales with strength, that it is just a throw in there change to be like, oh cool, look at this guy, he scales with multiple things. Like really, it does not matter. And if anything, you should maybe allow it to like scale with both, or just scale with int. Like, Neith is a great example of this. Like, Neith genuinely has reasons to build both kinds of power. She does work better with int from what I've seen, but there's absolutely reasons to build a bit of strength on her. Be that for, like, the strength-based items like Executioner, which is one of the best pen items in the game if you just want to pick up some of those strength-based effects. Or, of course, strength is better for scaling her auto attacks, and it's, is it her 1 that scales with strength? I think it is, and the 2 and the 3 and the ult. The ult scales with both, I think. Not entirely sure on the numbers, but there is, like, absolutely reasons to build strength on Neith, even though she's mainly an int character, I would say. And, you know, Chaka and Odin, also good examples. There's reason to build both on those. But yeah, Anubis 2, like, there's no point in building him strength. It may as well just have base damage or, like, just scale with int or whatever. I had not played Conquest since the other game modes came out in Smite 1, so it was something sort of new. God damn, how long have you been playing Smite 1? I'm pretty sure Arena came out in like 2013 and the game only came out in 2012. God damn, I'm supposed to be an old guy. It was fun and the jungle was my favorite role. Overall, it was refreshing and gave me an itch of excitement to play Smite again. Yeah, I feel the same way, honestly. It was so much fun. Honestly, a huge improvement on a great game. I do keep missing my buff because I tap mouse 3 instead of walking over it though. Also, permanent red pot was so much better. Yeah, I do like the fact that the 3k pots are permanent now. It just makes sense. All pick bug should stay. Make it a separate mode. Yeah, there was a bug where you could pick the same character on one team. I mean, just make it a match of the day, I suppose. Not a separate permanent game mode. Cons, store UI needs work, absolutely. Bushes need new creative skin like smoke. I don't really know what that means. Both camp numbers are a bit confusing. It's cool though, wish their respawn was a bit quicker too. Pros, Gold Fury and Fire Giant feel good to battle, new items and builds are fun, sounds and graphics are great, tower bounties are cool, minion last hit indicator is awesome. Yeah, this is a big thing that, like, no one seems to really be talking about, but I think it massively improves, like, the laning phase, just being able to make sure you can secure those last hits and play a little bit more of a defensive, like, freezy game rather than just insta-clearing the wave. Hopefully card art comes back instead of the 3D models of the gods. Yeah, I agree with this as well. Like, the card arts really don't look great at the moment because they're sort of, like, 3D rendered. Hopefully the standard, like, 2D card arts come back. I thought the scaling on different abilities was a little odd, but maybe I just need to play with it more. I think that's going to be the case, honestly, for a lot of this stuff. You know, it's going to feel weird to start with, but trust me, like, once you've got, you know, a month or two of experience with Smite 2 under your belt, like, you'll get the hang of it. I also think more items will help, but things like Athena's dash being physical while the rest being intelligence, I feel like gimped her damage. It's cool conceptually, but annoying to try and create a build that's able to output damage when half of your abilities on the character won't scale with the items you choose, but the other half acts the opposite. Yeah, some cases like this, as we mentioned before with like Anubis 2, is a little dumb, and you just shouldn't bother even building strength on him. I'm not entirely sure what Athena's scalings are. Obviously, the one is strength, obviously, but I think the rest is entirely in, so I would say probably just don't even bother building strength on Athena. But yeah, ideally, they want to be hybrid characters where there is a reason to build both, like Chak, like Odin, like Neith. Those are like the good versions of it, and hopefully they can model some of the more hybrid characters off of that. Not every character is going to be hybrid. Kukulkan has entirely intelligent scaling. Zeus has entirely intelligent scaling, although, of course, his auto scale off of strength, and he's a little bit auto attack synergy now. But yeah, there will probably be plenty of gods that scale entirely with one or entirely with the other. Like Anher, for example, is entirely a strength hunter. Like, just because every god can be hybrid doesn't mean every god will be hybrid. There'll definitely be some that aren't. Overall, I like it and can see a bright future for it down the road. Currently felt a lot slower than Smite 1 and slightly clunky, but that was the point of the alpha. Hoping Kairos listens to the community and nails it. Yeah, it definitely did feel a lot slower, and there was plenty of jank. But yeah, as he says, that's the point of the alpha. As long as they listen to our feedback, fix these things. I'm looking forward to the second test to see, you know, how much progress is made, how many of the bugs are fixed, how many new things are added, new content, that kind of stuff, and we'll sort of see what kind of pace the development is going to take for Smite 2. It's meh, not overly enthusiastic yet. Hope it gets better with time, which it should since it's an alpha. Yeah, no specific reason why this guy didn't enjoy it, but yeah, it's definitely a bit of a lack of content at the moment in the alpha. If you're expecting to come in and have like a full game of like Smite 1 quality, that's not what it's going to be. Even in the closed and open beta periods, that's probably not what it's going to be. Even by release, it probably won't have the level of content that Smite 1 has. That just kind of makes sense. Smite 1's been going for over 10 years. Good, but had some performance issues with a decent setup, even on medium settings, i9, 3060, and 32GB of RAM. Anyone else? Personally, I didn't have any performance issues with Smite 2. It ran like a dream for me. Pretty much capped at 144 FPS the entire time. I do have a pretty beastly PC. I've got an RX 7900 XTX and a Ryzen 7800 X3D with 32GB of RAM. So like, I was absolutely chilling in terms of like my PC should be able to run that game, but it did run well. I had no issues at the moment. But yeah, as you can see here, that there were plenty of people that were having issues with it. I can't speak to that. It ran like a dream for me, but I have heard a lot of people have been having like performance issues with it. Hopefully that kind of stuff gets ironed out over time though, as because it's kind of hard to get that information when they're running like private tests with 20 people at the company and like 100 of us in like the content creator Discord. It's kind of hard to gather that information when PCs can be so different. They probably might have a little bit more data on like consoles and stuff like that because they're all uniform, but with everyone having a different PC, sometimes it's not going to run well on certain hardware. But now that they've had, 130,000 people playing in the alpha, they'll probably be able to get a lot more of that information, and it should be more optimized for the next alpha test, I would imagine. I put almost 7 hours into it, and I felt amazing, such a huge upgrade, but my biggest negative thoughts to it are things that will get addressed soon, like MMR, item pool, so irrelevant to be honest. One thing that needs to be addressed is the early game feels way too snowbally and unbalanced and way more punishing for a slight mistake early on. Yeah, as I said, a lot of this I think is on tower bounties and gold piles. I think in general, like the fighting and how much minion waves are worth, how much jungle camps are worth is kind of fine. I think tower bounties are causing a lot of this issue because you can get half an item just from taking a tower and then you just get like ridiculously fed off of that. I dislike the building system and UI adopted from League of Legends. The graphics improvements like kill animations and worldview are insanely cool though. Needs more time to cook, but what they have is good. Tweaking of values is big in all aspects. I feel supports are maybe a tad too weak in the stat department and rely on actives to fill the gap. Yeah, a lot of the good active items are going to be in support. Generally, that's even in Smite 1, you could argue that that's the case because a lot of the good like big team fight impact relics were used on supports obviously, and it's going to be similar in Smite 2 but with active items. Sun gods are either weak or too strong. Items are all over the place to stat value and gold. Action button needs to go. Yeah, I agree with that. And teleporters need something added to them. Mages also feel weak while hunters feel pretty strong. Lifesteal is so bad it's not worth going, and that goes for percent pen. Percent pen is fine. I don't think there's an issue with that. If anything, it's like a little bit overtuned, I would say, in the alpha. But it's overtuned, I would say, in a good way. Like, the percent pen itself is a little bit overtuned. Like, a lot of the items have a ridiculous amount of percent pen on them, like Executioner having 50%. But the base stats on the item are terrible, and so I do kind of like that. You've got that trade-off. Like, if you're buying Executioner, you are fully going for that massive shred, and you're going to sacrifice a little bit in general stats for your build. Yeah, Lifesteal we talked about. They need to have more Lifesteal items, and also maybe even increase the non-god Lifesteal a little bit. Maybe just increase it to like 40% or something. That could help. But yeah, all of this balance stuff is probably going to change by the time we next see the alpha. Honestly, they'll do a lot of balance changes and stuff, and especially by the time we get to beta or full release, the balance is going to be completely different. It took me quite a while to get used to everything, but after I did, I really do love the freedom to build as I please. Int Neath and attack speed crit Zeus go hard. I do hope we get more items though. The game is pretty, but it kind of looks like every other game out there now. Yeah, we've talked about this earlier. Smite 1 kind of had its own style, and I feel like a bit of that is lost in Smite 2. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people basically say this. Like, it takes a while to get used to, but after you've tried it for a few games, like the actual freedom that it gives you with the new item system, I think is really cool. And I've seen a lot of people already in like my comment sections and on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff like that saying they were a little bit apprehensive at first and it seemed a bit too complicated, but it's actually relatively intuitive once you actually get in game and give it a try for a few games, and you can pick it up really quick. Like, it might seem intimidating from the outside when you're reading all these numbers and all the different scalings on gods and stuff like that, but once you actually get in game, it all makes sense. It was cool, but really couldn't enjoy every god fully because of the amount of items that were in the game. Also, the store kind of difficult to navigate on console. Yeah, they definitely do need to bring out some more items to fill some of the niches that aren't filled at the moment, that's for sure. It's clear they don't care about console at all with Smite 2. Everything was terrible as far as the UI goes for console. I cancelled my pre-order for the $100 version because it was borderline unplayable on Xbox. I fully believe they absolutely do care about the console player base because that is, as far as I'm aware, at least half or more than half of the total Smite 1 player base. There's no shot they don't care about the console player base. Maybe they've fucked it up a little bit with this alpha. Maybe they were focusing a little bit too much on the PC side of things. But they've been getting a lot of feedback from console players, people like you, Tex-Mex, so hopefully by the time it's in the next alpha phase, they'll have a little bit more attention paid to like the console UI and how it's going to work on console. And finally, we'll end off my community post before we move over to Reddit with a classic. If I can't transfer my skins, I'm never touching it. That's fine. That's your decision to make. Alright, moving on to this Reddit post by JackBBR123. Thoughts on Smite 2. I really enjoyed solo lane, haven't played season 11, but the kill potential, neutral objectives, and the portals add a lot to solo lane. It makes it feel like I'm not just stranded on an island for 10 minutes, and if I do rotate, I don't lose a wave. Yeah, the map definitely does feel a lot smaller, especially than Season 11's map. For me, I'm not sure I'm a massive fan of it. I do like a generally bigger map where there's more of a cost to actually, like, rotating towards a fight. It's part of the reason why I don't like teleporters. Like, you just kind of free rotations across the map, and you don't really have to think about when you're going to rotate. You just kind of do it. Because me, personally, I'm maybe even a little too far in this direction, but I do like the farming aspect of MOBAs. I'm not here just to play a big team battle. You know, I'll go play, like, Overwatch or fucking TF2 or something if that's what I'm trying to play for. Like, I do like the micro and, like, farming aspects of MOBAs and playing the laning phase while outplaying your opponent and that kind of stuff. So I do like the map to be a little bigger and the laning phase to be a little more isolated than probably your typical player, which you can see here. I'm disagreeing with this post with 75 upvotes. The alpha was super bare bones, but it felt like they're heading in a really strong direction. I'm anticipating some good stuff in the future. Yeah, this is generally my feeling towards the alpha as well. It was very bare bones. There weren't too many characters available. They obviously delayed Hecate because people were not very happy with the kit design she was taking. Items are a little bit lacking. There's plenty of jank and stuff like that, but I think as a fundamental foundation for the first time they've ever allowed us to play the game publicly, I think there's so much potential here, and I think within a year or something, you know, by the time it full releases, like next year potentially, I think there's a massive amount of potential, and when they can get the game polished, when they can get most of the Smite 1 gods in, which probably won't happen by release, they're aiming for about 50 gods at release, I think. But over time, all the Smite 1 gods will get added. And I think when that's the case, and they've got all of the systems figured out, all of the jank out of the game, or most of the jank out of the game, there's obviously going to be some that's high res. But yeah, I think there's a ton of potential there. I didn't see any jiggle physics on Zeus, Sag. Yeah, that was the worst part of the alpha, man. I honestly wanted to quit because of that. It was pretty terrible. Loved it. Got absolutely crushed by people who made Smite, but I loved it. Yeah, dude, I was very surprised by the amount of people that didn't know what they were doing in the alpha. Like, I fully expected to log onto the alpha and only play against people that have, you know, at least 100 hours in Smite 1. I didn't think people would be that invested in Smite 2 if they hadn't played a lot of Smite 1. And as much as it made for some wacky games because everyone started at the same MMR, and so you had these people that had never tried Smite before hopping in with people like me, I'm honestly fine with that, and it's probably a good sign that, like, there are people that are completely new to, maybe not new to the genre, but at least completely new to Smite and didn't really know what they were doing. Like, sure, it made for some wacky games, but it's kind of cool seeing that, like, already at this early of a stage, there are people interested in Smite 2 that have never even played Smite 1. Because sure, it's going to be great for all those Smite 1 mains. It's just an updated, better version of Smite so that we can all play, but it really wants to pull in those new players if it can, so it's good to see that. And Dances with Wolves, I hope you had a good time, even though you got destroyed. Feels a bit clunky and slow, and I got burnt out pretty quick because of the small god pool and no progression. Like, I want to play my main so badly in Smite 2. Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of it. Like, for me, I'm just playing Smite 2, and I don't really care who I'm playing, dude. I just want to try out all the new cool stuff. There were a few gods I enjoy, you know, Bellona's in there, Fenrir's in there, but honestly, a lot of my favorite gods aren't in the alpha yet either, and it'll be really cool when they do get added, and I'll see how they work with the new systems and stuff. I cannot wait for King Arthur, dude. But yeah, especially if you're very attached to a few Smite 1 gods and they weren't in the alpha, I can totally see why it will be a little bit boring for you if you can't really play, like, one of the few gods that you do play. Like, for me, I play this game way too much. I play it for a living. I play every single god, basically. There's only a handful of gods that I almost never play, so it was completely fine for me, but I can see people having that issue, you know, if you only play about 5 gods and they're all not in the alpha, it kind of sucks. Outside of the obvious bugs, pros, no classes. Items are generally fun outside of the weird balance between tier 2s and tier 3s. Map feels more active in terms of rotations, didn't feel like I had to wait till like 15 to do things. Strong start to the new graphics. Cons, UI/store needs more work, absolutely. Audio balance feels off. I'm surprised this is the first time this has been mentioned in all of my posts and this Reddit post so far. The audio balance was absolutely terrible. Sometimes it felt like you could barely hear abilities going off and you die to something and you're like, what even killed me? Because you're using like the sound cue, you weren't looking at the ability, but normally in Smite 1 you would hit the sound cue and be like, oh, okay, that's what killed me. And sometimes you just couldn't hear them at all, and then sometimes something would absolutely blow your eardrums out. Like, the audio balancing definitely needs some work going into the next alpha test. Colorblind mode is a problem. I do play Smite 1 on colorblind mode. I'm not colorblind. I just like the way the colors look. But yeah, that definitely needs to be added for actual colorblind people. I'm not going to complain about it because I don't actually need colorblind mode, but when it does get added, I'll probably turn it on because I prefer the blue and yellow health bars, or blue and yellow to me, compared to the green and red ones. Even at the highest, sensitivity feels too low. I got that as well, especially the vertical sensitivity was a little bit low in my opinion. I like where they're going with this. I think it'll be better than Smite 1 by the time they finish fixing and polishing. Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. Honestly, it was almost impossible to enjoy without playing customs. People left the game every single match, so it never felt like you could get a good gauge on anything. Playing the alpha made me appreciate Smite 1 a lot more. Yeah, I can definitely sympathize with this comment. Like, a lot of my games were pretty bad as well. I did get some half-decent games, but a lot of the time, either someone was DCing or someone was completely new and had no idea what they're doing, which I've said before is really cool. I think it's awesome that, like, some people are coming into Smite 2 and they have, like, no experience with Smite 1. They're just trying out Smite 2 because they think it looks cool. I think that's great. But unfortunately, there's no real way around that. You know, they can't already know what your MMR is. I guess they could port your MMR from Smite 1 directly and then maybe yeah, I guess they could have done that. It would have been a lot of effort, though. You know, maybe just for the alpha. They'll probably want a full reset on release. But yeah, they maybe could have done that, I guess. Or maybe just have a more aggressive MMR system where, like, if you win, like, 4 games in a row, you're immediately boosted up to, like, very near the top. And if you lose 4 in a row, you're immediately boosted way down to the bottom. Just for the alpha, you don't want the MMR system being that aggressive on release. But, you know, just so that they can get people into more decent games, I guess. Because a lot of mine really did feel like there was, you know, 1, 2, 3 people in the game that just literally didn't even know what a MOBA was. And it was kind of made for some very unfair matches. But it's an alpha. I wasn't playing to, you know, get competitive, good feeling games. I'll play Smite 1 if I want to do that. I was playing to test out the new stuff, give feedback, explore everything that's new in Smite 2. So personally, I don't really mind about this. I did get a lot of these games, but I do not care. I really don't care. Like, sometimes you just gotta deal with that when it's an alpha. L opinion, but I like Smite 1 items better than Smite 2. Apparently not that much of an L opinion. Got 19 upvotes here. At the moment, I can kind of see where he's coming from because a lot of the Smite 1 items are much more refined and well developed. And there's also, like, much less gaps in builds. So yeah, I would argue in Smite 1 there isn't really any gaps in builds. You can always find something good to fill out your build, whereas in Smite 2 it did feel sometimes like I'm looking in the store and I'm like, none of this is really good for what I'm trying to do right now. So they really do just need to refine the items a little bit more in terms of, like, the play style of some of them and the direction they want to go, and add a few more as well, in my opinion. I personally don't enjoy it because of stubbornness to learn the new shop and how they're making it more similar to other MOBAs, so I'll probably play Smite 1 for as long as I can, but it looks good. Yeah, I can't really knock you for that. You know, if you don't want to learn the new stuff and you don't like the way they're changing it, that's a completely valid opinion. But I will say, try and give it a try if you're of this opinion. Like, if you've given it a try and you still don't like it, absolutely fine. But I do think it will take some getting used to. And I think once you discover what's possible with the item system, once you get a hang of it, I think it's gonna interest you a lot, personally. But yeah, I think we'll end off the video there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I just thought I would give a little bit of commentary and sort of collect people's thoughts from the community into one video on what people are thinking about Smite 2 overall. From what I've gathered generally from these comments, they're roughly similar to my opinions. Like, there's a lot of jank, there's a lot of things that need to be improved, there's a lot of new content that needs to be added, but overall, like, the actual foundation of the game is looking really solid, and I'm super optimistic for the future of it. Very excited for future tests. You know, I imagine, you know, maybe next test or maybe the test after that, a lot of the major bugs will be ironed out and a lot of the optimizations will come in for people that were having performance issues and stuff like that. Because there's going to be so much improvement. There was already a lot of improvement from the private test to this alpha that I played, because obviously I played in the private tests in the content creator server. And there was some massive improvements just to this alpha test from those. And considering they had data from about 200 people or something before, and now they have data from 130,000 people, they're probably going to be able to fix a lot of stuff for the next alpha test. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Smite 2? You may have already left them on the community post, but leave them on this video as well. I want to read over everyone's thoughts on the game and get a general sense for it. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in another video later on. Peace out.